which is recording. Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to start again. Thanks everyone for making your time this evening. IG and Women Who Code are in collaboration to like bring in a very interesting topic this evening for the community to enrich their knowledge. To start with, I would like to like tell who we are and like we are a very large a community which helps and focuses on inspiring women to excel in technology careers and like technology careers it starts from uh, the level one to taking up a chief position on the board level as well. But we kind of help them and guide them in, like what are the career paths where they can go in and what are the knowledges which will help them achieve their the career plans. And as a community, like we have a code of conduct to how to, like work together and help each other and respect each other and identify the and complement each other as well. So like it's a common code of conduct which we strictly follow. And as I said, our mission is excelling women in the technology career and also being like inspiring them. We are widely spread across 20 countries, and the number is growing. The membership is growing every day, and you can see the number is like in 230K at the moment, and it's immensely growing. And also we are spreading across different cities. And as part of the London chapter, we have a wonderful community, and we have an amazing concept which I really like about like Women Who Code is there is an upload her section. It's all about like recognizing someone for the contributions or the work which they are doing in their career. And it can be not only your friends or your colleagues. Even if you have achieved something, you can always like upload yourself. And this is an online forum where you can go and submit your achievements, like. And this has a wider reach. It is not only it is published in the London chapter, but there are few uh, informations which will be published online in our global platform as well. And it's an amazing idea where like we never realize that we are doing a wonderful job. And appreciation like encourages to achieve more. And even like from now or tomorrow, you can like start recognizing what others do and start appreciating them, and even think about how great you are and start appreciating yourself. Like today, Melina have spent her time in coming and spreading her knowledge to the community. So I think I should applaud her for that. And it is a community, and it is you can't like do it all alone. And it has to be a lot of people coming together and helping each other. So there are different ways of getting into Women Who Code. You can be a member, and there are different roles like leads, evangelists, project manager. So you don't need to be a complete techie. You can like if you can manage all the techies, that is a great skill set as well. So you can come and be kind of volunteers with us and help each other. So we always say, dear women, we need you. And the tech industry is all about, like every day things are changing. And, like when knowledge is shared, like it really, really helps individuals and also and the community as well. So that's all about Women for Code. And thank you very much. And I'm going to hand over to Simon, the CIO and also a CTO of IG Groups.
Carty. I'm just waiting for those slides to drop and just to so I can see a gallery of as many faces as possible. Thank you very much. So thank you very much, Carty. It's good to see you again. IG has a relationship with Women in Code that's gone back to early last year. We hosted a joint networking session at IG last summer. We would love, of course, like everyone else, to be able to do that in our office again. At the moment, we can't do that, but this virtual forum is really welcome, and we're glad we can participate in it. I also want to thank Milena. I'm going to hand over to Milena after I've spoken for a few minutes, who's done all the hard work in hosting this call. So I'm the CIO of the IG Group. I'm not going to talk too much about IG Group actually, but we're an organisation of about 2,000 people, of which 700 are technologists. So I have the honour and also the privilege, but also the heavy responsibility of managing a large part of our organisation at IG. So as I say, a relationship with WWCode goes back a while, and we formed that relationship because obviously WWCode is a network that promotes gender diversity, but also one of the things that just reminded me of when I saw the code of conduct is the inclusiveness across all aspects of diversity. It's not just about gender. And I was thinking today how to best link the topic for this evening, which is about innovation, to diversity. So how does diversity help with innovation? And I thought I'd use my own life experiences, work experiences at least, to illustrate that. So on one hand, I thought, well, okay, so I'm if you haven't spotted it, a middle-aged white British man. How can I talk about diversity in my work experience and try to link that to innovation? But I thought I'd tackle that head on and give you some examples of where I have experienced that in the past, the benefits of diversity in the kind of work that I've done over, would you believe it, the last 33 years. That was another shocking thing this morning when I worked out how long I've been working. It's been 33 years. So, and here I find myself at IG, and actually, I'd love this to be the pinnacle of my career. Actually, I'm probably nearer the end of my career than my beginning of my career. IG is a great organisation. Of course, I'm going to say that. It's very dynamic, it's very varied, and it's very demanding. And one of the things I love about it is its own diversity, because IG has an ambiguity. It is, to some people, a financial services company, because we provide investment banking type products to retail clients. It's very niche. We're also a technology company. We provide a platform to our clients for them to have some financial freedom. And as I said, we've got a significant investment in technology. But to some of our clients, we're a lifestyle business. We offer them a dynamic and interesting lifestyle proposition. So actually, it's a natural place for me to land on, because the companies I worked for before, I worked for 6 other companies before, and 3 of them have been financial services, 2 have been technology, and 1 has been lifestyle. So I've got the blend of that experience, which I hope from different sectors I've been able to apply to IG. I'm going to stop there because my screen is only showing me, and I just wanted to check. Yeah, got my gallery back. So what's my message to you is what you do in terms of the organisations you work for, I think is a key aspect of diversity. Second thing, in terms of my own experience, is where I've worked. So out of those 33 years, I worked out that I've actually worked in 11 of those years outside of the UK. So a third of my time has been in other locations. And of course, I've lived and worked in places in the US, in Europe, and in Asia that have brought to me a greater diversity around culture, understanding of other people's perceptions, and the way to operate in a truly global fashion. And I've been really fortunate to be able to do that. Over the years, I've worked in 22 different offices, so offices in 22 different countries, and I've managed technology teams in 14 different countries as well. So that's that immersion and that natural global presence that I think really adds to diversity of thinking. So what companies you work for, where you work, I think is really important aspects of diversity. The third one, and I think this is the biggest truism, it's actually people work for people. It's who you work for, who your boss is, that brings out diversity of thinking, diversity of attitude, if you work for good people. Now, in those 33 years, I've actually had 22 bosses. And I was trying to rationalize myself with either they've moved on or they've moved me on. I hope that's not the case. But I've worked for a wide variety of people. Now, half of them have been British white men, okay? But if you look at the other half, I've had a significant number of those. 2/3 of the other half have been non-British. So they've been US, European or Asian bosses. And 2/3 of them have been female as well. So I've had the benefit of that diversity as well. And I think that's the thing that leaves its biggest mark, because those are the role models that have given me the kind of diverse thinking that I hope I can offer to my organisation and to the people who work for me. Now, my current boss is June Felix, who's the CEO of IG. So she ticks all the boxes because she is female and she's also American Asian descent. And she brings to our organisation a perspective and opens our eyes to the way the world thinks and the world works that IG hasn't had in the past. So how can I relate this all to innovation? I think I hope you're getting the message. It's a variety of experience that I've had the benefit of and the blessing of that's helped me with innovation. It's given me creativity. It's also given me a belief of the need for innovation. And that's why I place it highly important in IG technology to make sure that we retain the DNA of innovation that we've had over many years. But if I go back over my own life experience, I thought, well, okay, how can I demonstrate that I've actually done innovation? And I went back 30 years to when the first job I had, the first organisation I worked for, John Lewis Partnership, and I worked with the chief accountant of John Lewis Partnership, and in the day we just introduced the daily P&L at John Lewis, and he had just got his own personal computer. This is late 80s, early 90s. His own personal computer, and he was running a software package called Lotus 123. I expect nobody else other than me remembers Lotus 123. It was the Excel of its time. And he and I fixed a way that we could connect his PC to our mainframe. And I could download all of the daily P&L into his his Lotus 123 spreadsheet, so that when the CEO called up to ask questions about the daily P&L, he had it all available for him. These days, you'd never be able to do that. Information security, he could have taken down the mainframe, but I thought that was quite innovative at the time. But fast forward 10 years, I was working for Barclays Capital in the US, and Barclays Capital in the US had lost control over its technology infrastructure. And I worked with the head of infrastructure, and we designed and built a little sniffer tool that went throughout the entire Barclays Capital US network and sniffed out all the hardware and found out where it was. And lo and behold, we found servers under the desks of traders that were just sitting there gathering dust, that were running critical services. Again, I'm not sure I'll be allowed to do that these days for application security controls, but that was very innovative at the time. Fast forward another 10 years. I was working for Standard Chartered in Singapore. We genuinely delivered the world's first mobile wealth management planner for our private banking clients, for which we got several awards within Asia and actually worldwide. And then lastly at IG, one of the things that I'm most proud of, which we did earlier on in when I arrived a couple of years ago, is we used our public APIs to do a prototype of being able to trade over Alexa, which no one else had done before. Unfortunately, we couldn't put that live because it would have broken a bunch of compliance rules. So there's 4 examples that I can think of, and I think they do demonstrate a diversity of experience, organisations, locations, the kind of things that I've worked on over many years. I think what they all demonstrate, which is quite worrying, is I did break or bend quite a few rules in getting innovation done. So maybe when Milena talks, she'll reflect on how close you can sail to the wind. So that's what to talk about diversity and innovation. I do feel that what I've just shared with you is more than slightly indulgent, because I've talked more about myself and my own experience than anything else. But I hope that perspective helps you draw that connection between the two, between diversity and innovation. So thanks for watching and listening to me, and I'm going to hand over to Milena.
Thank you, Simon. Yeah, thank you all for dialing in, and thank you, Simon, for that very kind introduction. I have to say, I'm really, really pleased to be invited to give this presentation today. And I'm also really excited to work for an organization where innovation and diversity is taken so seriously. And it is being taken very seriously. I can attest to that. So let me just share my screen. Can you let me know when you can see?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, brilliant. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to talk to everybody about this really incredibly fascinating topic today that is really close to my heart. And I'm only a little bit nervous, but here we are, hey-ho. So I thought, I don't really want to bang on about myself too much, but I thought I'd tell you at least a little bit about a few cornerstones of my career so far, because I always find it useful to hear where someone has come from, so I can sort of contextualize what they're telling me. And I can tell you right now, so my career wasn't the most straightforward. Once upon a really, really long time, I studied literature and languages, English and Russian to be precise, at a really, really old and also very poorly funded university in East Germany. And when I was done in 2011, I also had the excellent fortune to graduate in the middle of the biggest recession that the world had ever had not ever seen, but definitely seen in several generations, with a humanities degree and a very, very vague idea that I wanted to do something with books. So I had a really brilliant start. Because there wasn't much going in Germany, I then moved to London, where instead of becoming a junior editorial assistant, which I wanted at Penguin, my German language skills then got me a job as a tech support advisor for a telecommunications company in a what can only be called soul-destroying call center in an industrial complex in East Croydon, where one of the things they did really well was time our loo breaks. And I kind of say tech support in the loosest possible sense, because the only tech skill that was needed in that job was knowing where you had to hit the Windows XP machine with a closed fist when the account software that we're using started lagging. So I was there for about 11 months, and then I was found by IG. And I say I was found because at that point I still had only a really very loose idea of what I wanted to do with my life. The call center job was paying so badly that I was doing a couple of bar shifts every week, so that my daily lunch wasn't ramen noodles for the last week before payday. And when I went to that interview at IG, to be very honest, my only motivation at that point was to get out as fast as I possibly could. So the SEO team at IG at the time needed a native German speaking copywriter to write articles that we were spamming every finance blog under the sun with, because that was kind of how SEO was done at the time. But over time, I learned a lot more about search engines. I learned a lot more about the business and our clients. I helped to build out the team. I got a website migration under my belt, all 15. And yeah, SEO is one of the things, because it touches pretty much every aspect of the business, or at least it does now. It really allowed me to get to know the business and our clients really well. And then with all of that, I suddenly got to a point where, at the time, my 25-year-old self, and that was a very kind of left side of the brain, all words, no numbers, kind of person that I was at the time, realized, hey, web development isn't as scary as I thought. And that was a really pivotal moment for me, because it meant that I kind of could start asking questions. And what's even more important, I could question the answers that I was given. So kind of to give you full disclosure right off the bat, I'm not a woman who codes. My way into a tech career was really not very straightforward at all. In fact, so I'm with IG currently the second time around, because I left, joined Over Energy for a bit as an SEO manager there, and then I came back a couple of years ago. But even this time around at IG, I've been trying to get into the technology department for a while, and interviewed for a couple of roles, and this time I finally made it. Yeah, the very first thing I can actually tell you about myself is that imposter syndrome is very real for me, especially when you're asked to give a webinar by the CIO of your organization about something you've only been doing for about 8 months. But the reason I'm telling you all of that is that I found it really, really encouraging to see that technology organizations, and IG especially, starting to see the value that people with kind of a non-traditional background can bring to the table. And I guess overall progress is a bit slow, but it's definitely happening. So without further ado then, I want to talk about how we can manage innovation, how we do manage innovation at IG. I think before we go in, we should probably agree on a few common definitions. So what is it that we actually mean when we say innovation? So as you can see on the slide, my very first point of call was Merriam-Webster, which defines innovation as a new idea, method, or device, a novelty, or secondly, the introduction of something new. And that's a good start, but it's not really quite enough for what we need for this presentation. So the next thing I did is I did a little Google research, and I harassed my Twitter followers, and I found a few definitions from people with who are kind of big names in the innovation space. And I've collected them on this slide. So if you read them out, innovation is turning an idea into a solution that adds value from a customer's perspective, or it's the application of ideas that are new and useful. And I've also harassed Simon, and he gave me a really good definition, which is a novel thing for our clients, our staff, or our community. It almost certainly won't be the world's first instance of the thing, but for our business, it will be new. The thing can be an experience, a product, a service, a process, or an approach. We'll know when it's innovative, it'll be obvious, it'll be cool, and it'll make us feel more proud. So it touches on quite a lot of things. And if you take all of the quotes that I've put together, if you look at them collectively, there's kind of a number of common themes that pop up in all of them. There is having an idea. It's kind of the most important thing, but then you come to executing an idea. You need to do something with it. It's about the idea that needs to solve a real problem. It needs to add value for the business, the customer, people of an organization. It's a new way of looking at things. It's got the new approach. And last but not least, it's kind of got to have the coolness factor as well to get people excited. So if we bring all of that then together, then we have a pretty good definition that we can use for the purpose of this presentation. And the one that I've come up with here is innovation is coming up with and executing an idea that addresses a real challenge and achieves value for both the business and the customer. So then the next question we want to ask from here is, how can we know that the idea that we've had can become a successful innovation? So people always talk about pursuing some kind of grand vision, like an idea that could really have an impact for the customers and the business. And obviously that's a really noble goal to have, and is also really necessary for keeping teams motivated and kind of going in the right direction. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But in reality, the odds of kind of every little part of something being perfect are quite slim. And you usually kind of have to give something to get something. So when we get too focused on the idea of, the perfect outcome, we can end up taking a really unbalanced approach. And we end up sacrificing other important aspects that maybe our version of perfection doesn't really take into account. So the balance is really important to get it right. And so for getting innovation right, the balance for that sweet spot lies in the middle of a Venn diagram between three factors. And we call that the trifecta of innovation. And the three factors are desirability, feasibility, and viability. So I've said before that for an idea to work, it kind of has to solve the right problem. It's for your customer. Is it a nice to have, or is it a kind of, I can't remember how I live without that kind of solution? So you want to put yourself in the shoes of your customers. You want to look at what they're trying to do, what they're trying to achieve. if you're solving a key pain point for them, or more than one, then you know that your idea has met that test for the desirability. So the next one is feasibility. And feasibility just means looking really critically at your organization and your capabilities and ask yourself, can we do this? So that means you have to be really clear-eyed about where the strengths and weaknesses lie in your organization. That can be technology, it can be financial, it can be branding, customer service, whatever. And if your idea and the new solution that you come up with, if it can leverage all of that what's already there, and any new capabilities that you need can be built where the organization that you have is already strong, that's quite a strong indicator that an idea can work. But if it requires building completely new capabilities, that's quite a risky investment, because on the one hand, the amount of the resources you require, but also it might actually change how the market and your customers see the company, and that's not always necessarily for the better. And I can actually give you a really bad example from our own backyard. And I hope Simon doesn't decapitate me for that, but it's actually before his time, so it's not his fault. So it's a good example, but what happened wasn't good. IG once, this was a few years ago, we tried to get people into trading through a mobile game that people somehow had hoped would go viral, like Candy Crush. And that was obviously a terrible idea for all sorts of reasons. But one of the biggest reasons that it was a terrible idea was that IG wasn't and isn't a gaming company. So we had zero capabilities in the games dev space, which then meant that everything had to be brought in from the outside. And because we had no experience of how things worked in that space, we didn't even really know how to ask the right questions. We couldn't really tell if what people were telling us was true. So that was a big risk. And spoiler alert, didn't pay off. And the shareholders didn't love it very much. So the last point is viability. And viability kind of tests your idea for long-term sustainability. I'd say it's probably the hardest test, definitely for a company like IG, because we get tossed about by so many fast-moving parts, global markets, regulators, only a few. But that absolutely doesn't mean that that question should be skipped. So there are too many companies that build solutions that look at short-term profit only, and they don't really consider the long-term impact. And that's a little diatribe, but I find it absolutely shocking how many unicorn companies are there at the moment that haven't really figured out how to become profitable yet, or if it's even possible for them to become profitable. Because that's not innovation, right? If you can only throw money at something for people to like it, and as soon as the money dries up and your venture capital dries up, that's not successful. So what I'm saying is there are 3 simple questions that you should always ask about any idea, and that's: do they want it? Can we do it? And should we do it? And you shouldn't only ask the questions about the big ideas. Obviously, big ideas are exciting, and what motivational speakers get paid to talk about. But corporate innovation is a bit different. So I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but the next Uber or Robinhood or Revolut is probably not going to come out of a blue chip innovation lab. And actually, blue chip innovation labs are closing all over the world, so people aren't getting out what they're putting in. Although there is actually one pretty notable example that a lot of people don't know about. Don't know, does anybody on the line know about how Tinder came into existence? So the idea of Tinder was born, not many people know this, at a hackathon that was hosted by the corporate innovation lab of Match.com. I really love facts like that. And like my last big trip before COVID was to San Francisco, where people are just full of facts like that. And it's really fun. But the folks at Match.com were looking at decreasing subscription numbers, and they wanted to build something free and easy that would stop people from hitting up the competition, because they figured people weren't getting any less single. They just didn't want to pay $10 a month to be reminded of the fact that they weren't in a relationship. So I kind of got that right. So I'm definitely not saying it can't happen, but especially sort of in terms of corporate sponsored innovation effort. It helps us think of the scale of innovation on the matrix between technology newness and impact on the market. So at the bottom end of the scale, we have incremental innovation. And that's the gradual continuous improvement to existing products and services that happen all around us at all the time, kind of as a normal part of the product and sprint backlogs of the software development teams in kind of any organization. And the further we move out on the x-axis of technology newness, the more we then move into radical innovation territory. And by that, we mean kind of technological breakthrough that transforms industries and can create entirely new markets. So radical innovation is about looking at existing technology and figuring out new applications for that. There's a really good definition of that by the Harvard Business Review that I'm just going to read out. It says that radical innovation focuses on long-term impact and may involve displacing current products, altering the relationship between customers and suppliers, and creating completely new product categories. So an example of radical innovation would be the iPhone, which put a lot of bits together that already existed and paved the way for the modern smartphone market, and also killed off the iPod in the process, which initially was a radical innovation in its own right. But then if you look through the lens of market impact, you get to sustaining innovation, which means innovating by making a significant improvement on a product that aims to sustain the position in an existing market. So sustaining innovation kind of targets the high-end customer market that's quite demanding, with things like better performance or more features than what was previously available. For us at IG, our last kind of big bang sustaining innovation was our new web trading platform. In our industry, it's kind of perceived wisdom that a trading platform has a shelf life of about 7 years. And the old one that we had was kind of starting to slightly come apart at the seams. So we were in critical territory, but we actually managed to land a new one that's redefined kind of customer expectations for speed of execution kind of several times over. And now we kind of have to almost start doing that again soon, because, 7 years. But lastly, then at the end of the scale, kind of for both market impact and technology newness, you then kind of have the ultimate goal, which is disruptive innovation. And that's, an idea which can be technology or business model that's so exciting, so useful, so desirable, or so easy to use that it just completely upends an existing market, because it gives consumers something they didn't even know they needed. That's the I didn't know how to live without that before. So disruptive technology isn't created within any existing frameworks, but it kind of rather identifies new opportunities and changes the conversation kind of around that technology and innovation in that space. And it allows kind of smaller organizations that don't have massive resources to compete with, and also challenge bigger, kind of more established companies. And it's all kind of about identifying areas that haven't been properly explored before, or niches that aren't covered. So for IG, again, that would have been the first online trading platform, or even when we first invented spread betting. I say we, but this was 40 years ago, but I've been there so long that I'm very institutionalized. But there's a really interesting article by Clayton Christensen, as the author of The Innovator's Dilemma, which is a really interesting book on innovation, where he argues that Netflix is much more disruptive than Uber, because when it launched its subscription service originally, it didn't go after the core customers of competitors like Blockbuster, for instance. They only appealed to kind of a few customer groups, which were, film nerds who didn't really care that much about new Hollywood releases, early adopters of stuff like DVD players, or and then also online shoppers, which was also very niche at that time. So the really huge shift only happened with the rise of streaming video. So when Netflix was suddenly able to appeal to Blockbuster's core audience, because they were providing all of their content online, kind of in an all-you-can-watch, on-demand, low price, high quality, and really super highly convenient. And then all of a sudden, Blockbuster, which was a massive imperium with stores in every mall in America, was suddenly gone. But when Uber launched, they didn't go after kind of overlooked segments of the market or provide a cheaper alternative to taxis. All they did was make booking a taxi more convenient through the smartphone. Hailing an Uber is only cheaper in London, for instance, than a black cab, because Uber has made the strategic choice to lose money on every ride. That's the acquisition strategy, but that's not the inherent value of their technology, if that makes sense. So if we've kind of got a slightly better idea of kind of the concepts and definitions related to innovation, I think we can get to the meat. And I think, what do we think? Can innovation really be managed? So you've all dialed to the meeting, so I optimistically assume that you're at least open to the idea that that's possible. And IG and Simon continue to employ me to do that, so I take that as a sign that they're on board with it as well. There are obviously views and people who say that innovation is more of a creative process, which would mean that it depends more on happenstance and kind of stars aligning. And I've said before that big companies are actually closing their innovation labs all over the globe, and that kind of indicates that there is at least some truth in that. But over the last years at least, innovation management as a discipline has gained quite a lot of traction in organizations all over the globe as well. And while there's quite a lot of debate around what the term itself actually means, the consensus that we have is that it's at least possible to kind of build systems and processes for the purpose of creating more innovation. So virtually any new development in an organization probably can be considered at least somewhat to be related to innovation. So it can be quite difficult, I guess, to again come up with a common understanding of what innovation actually means in practice. But for me, understanding what the simplest way of understanding is to kind of break it down into the key elements and then discuss them separately. So the 4 cornerstones of innovation management that I see are kind of capabilities, structures, culture, and strategy. So when you look at capabilities, we're going to use it as an umbrella term that's kind of used to cover the different abilities and resources that an organization has for creating and managing innovation. So that's mostly people. So that's teams and individuals, but it refers to the abilities and kind of insights, the know-how, and the practical skills of the people that work for the organization. So again, to kind of give you a personal example for at IG, my role is a bit of a satellite. Like, I don't have a fixed team that works under me. Instead, everybody who works in our technology department has sort of an allowance of 1 day a month that they can spend on non-project work. And innovation activities kind of fall under that umbrella. So that's brilliant, right? So as Simon said, we've got 700 people working in IT. I should have 700 man days a month to make stuff happen. So that's a whole lot of innovation, theoretically. But obviously reality is a little bit different. So 1 day a month actually isn't a whole lot, and people don't always use it, especially when there's kind of big department spanning initiatives going on, which is the case at the moment, or also, you know, when a global pandemic sort of forces the world to work from home for a year and everybody is suddenly in survival mode. And that kind of brings me to the next point: structures. So the difference between structures and capabilities is that structure enables the effective use of the capabilities. The right structures can work sort of as a force multiplier, if you will, that allows the organization to sort of operate much more effectively and innovate much more effectively. So for example, without the right, say, communication channels, processes for making decisions, the right infrastructure for implementing ideas, very few of the ideas that people are coming up with actually ever see the light of day. And when nothing comes out at the end of the funnel, obviously sooner or later, and in reality probably sooner, people will stop sharing their ideas because it's demotivating, right? Like, you know, you put stuff in, nothing ever comes out, nobody tells you what happens, you kind of stop contributing. So organizational structure is really, really key here. So if every new innovative initiative the innovative initiative is forced to go through the same chain of command, it's very likely that many of them will get smothered. And teams working on innovation kind of need to be able to move really fast and adapt to their environment. And they need to be able to make decisions independent of kind of the traditional ways of doing stuff in an organization. And I'll talk a little bit more in detail about the structure we put in place for that at IG. But let's kind of look at the first, at the last 2 points first. So that's culture and strategy. So if structure allows the effective use of capabilities, then culture is what enables the organization to kind of have the capabilities related to people, which means to recruit and retain the right people. And again, I'll talk more about kind of what makes a culture pro-innovation later, kind of the always learning, always experimenting, tolerant of failure, providing enough freedom, responsibility. But the last point, strategy, I really want to talk about first. So strategy, in kind of the simplest term, is the plan that an organization has for achieving long-term success. And what that means in this context of innovation is that, first of all, your company should have one as a strategy and stick to it. And that kind of sounds like a no-brainer again, but it really isn't. In like, especially in younger organizations, again, not IG, but stuff that I've seen before. I've kind of seen a lot of kind of flip-flopping, for example, between targeting rapid growth and then kind of going back and it's like, oops, we spend too much and now we have to sustain the market position and really tighten our belts. So it makes it really difficult to prioritize the right ideas. But secondly, and I think equally as important, it means that everyone in the organization should understand the strategy, because if that isn't the case, and I've also seen that also in the past at IG, where people kind of fall into that mindset of, I'll just kind of do what I've always done, and there is no bigger blocker for innovation and innovative thinking than that mindset. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, and like one size really doesn't fit all, and the right way to manage innovation is really unique to each organization. But it's, I would say, more often than not, this is with my giant experience, more often than not, depending on all 4 factors, so that's capability, structures, culture, and strategy, they have to align with each other. And I'll end the segment with like a really nice quote from Reid Hoffman, who's the co-founder of LinkedIn, who says, the best managers, and that he means innovation managers of the most innovative organizations, they don't tell their employees how to innovate. They manage the chaos. So I thought I'd tell you a bit about how we manage the chaos at IG. And a big part, if not the biggest, is idea management. So idea management is the cornerstone of managed innovation. It's how we collect ideas, it's how we evaluate them and then place them on a roadmap. And this is a very simple diagram that I drew. And that's absolutely nothing like the real process. But it starts kind of with a big bucket of ideas that's slowly trimmed down and groomed for delivery over time. And the process that we've painstakingly developed, and that we're still constantly adapting. We're still constantly kind of expanding and trimming. And sometimes people don't have time to attend meetings, so we need to find ways around that. But then, you know, the process needs to fit the actual idea. But the real process looks a lot more like this. So what happens is that an idea is raised somewhere in the business, and somewhere, because people know that I'm the innovation lead, they come to me with the idea in very raw format. And depending where the idea originated, it'll be more or less fleshed out. So then I have a set of questions that I'll either work with the person who raised the idea to kind of answer themselves, or I'll help them figure out where they can find the additional information. And at that point, some of the submissions will already die. But once we've kind of sufficiently teased out so the what and the wherefore, what we need, it then goes into the official innovation backlog, which we then sort of review and prioritize in the innovation steering group, which is it's meant to be a monthly meeting, doesn't always happen monthly, but it's a group that is made up of stakeholders from kind of different areas of the business. That's technology largely, but also insight, product, and marketing. Excuse me. And if you remember the trifecta that I mentioned earlier, desirability, viability, and feasibility, that's kind of where we attempt to answer the big questions for the first time. So it's, do they want it? Can we do it? Should we do it? And then as a group, we make that decision to proceed. So that's a yay or a nay. And at that point also, if an idea is thrown out, actually just at any stage, not just in the meeting, it's really, really crucial that we give an explanation to the person who submitted the idea, because without that transparency, there can't be any trust in the process, and the trust in the process is probably the most crucial to ensure that people keep sending in their ideas, because as I said earlier, it's demotivating, right? You know, you submit an idea and then it dies and nobody tells you. But yeah, so if the group does greenlight an idea, we also discuss kind of how the concept could be validated. That can look really different depending on what the idea is. Could be qualitative or quantitative user research, could just be crunching some data that we already sit on, or it could also just be simply talking to other business areas. And again, that's kind of an extinction event, so not every idea passes that test. But again, kind of feedback for everyone involved up to this point is really important. But again, if that hurdle is passed, we're then going into delivery mode, and then I don't have a steady team, so recruiting volunteers is part of that process, and then we break down the task into, you know, the normal process. So we break it down into stories, gather requirements, write acceptance criteria, prioritize the story, and then my volunteers get cracking. So the structures we've put into place for this, I want to talk a little bit more about that, but so we've got submission forms, which are hosted centrally, where we collate not just ideas, but also problems that haven't got solutions yet. Just, you know, if somebody wants to participate in the process, but they haven't got their own idea, but they want to help solve a problem. We then have a Canvas template to refine the solution. To refine the solution hypothesis and problem statements. There is a new thing called the Rapid Testing Initiative, which has come out of the UX and Insight team, which is really good for testing and validating propositions that are client-facing. We've got the wall, which is just a visualization of our backlog. In non-pandemic times, it's an actual wall in the office in current remote times, and also to, you know, help all our remote colleagues in Bangalore and Krakow. It's a Trello board. Then we've got the innovation marketplace, which is not live yet. It's something we're working on at the moment. It's where everybody in the business can kind of add their challenges and problems that they're facing that need solving. And then lastly, we've got, as I said before, the innovation steering group, which is the meeting that we have is a forum from kind of stakeholders from tech, from client insight, from product, and from marketing, and they steer and prioritize the innovation backlog. So we use two submission forms, one sort of for ideas and one for problems, and as I said earlier, they're kind of hosted centrally on the intranet. I've got an innovation site on there that I don't update as much as I should. But they're accessible by everybody at IG. And then we also make sure that they're referenced and shared regularly in department wide comms and town halls, so that people kind of always know where they can go with an idea. And we monitor the submissions continuously, and responses are being sent out promptly. So that's, again, really important to maintain the trust in the process. And we ask for the required information. Kind of, what's the summary of your idea? What problem does it solve? How does it solve the problem? Who's it for? But because we want to make it as accessible as possible, so we don't make all the fields mandatory. Like, it's nice if the person submitting the idea has already thought about how it could be tested, or what the risks are, what might stop us, and what resources we need. But actually, most of the time, the answers to those questions are kind of teased out during the refinement process. And then once we have that required information, we use this Canvas template to further refine the problem statement or the solution hypothesis. And then that's also used to kind of socialize the idea around the business. And yeah, I'm just showing you one that has made it in, and that I guess isn't giving away too many business secrets, because I'm assuming every business currently that has people working remotely is facing a similar problem. But yeah, this is just one idea that we had for addressing that. And then for client-focused ideas, we have, as I said earlier, the Rapid Testing Initiative, which is a really, really cool platform that lets us kind of quickly validate proposition, and then kind of helps us with the decision to proceed or kill. And it's run by our client inside an UX team, and they kind of take between 4 and 6 concepts every 2 months and put them in front of a group of clients. And the designs are really low effort. Like, it can be anything from very rough wireframe to kind of text explanation. And yeah, it's really great way of kind of testing ideas kind of quickly and also at scale. And then, yes, the other thing I mentioned that we have is the wall, which that is not an actual picture of our wall, because I haven't been in the office in 6 months. But currently it's a Microsoft Planner board. And tickers kind of pass through the stages from idea to shape and refine to develop. So from kind of when you from the beginning of the process, when you start to fill in the canvas, to eventually handing it over to a development team. And it's not always clear, and we're not strictly adhering to kind of any product management disciplines. It's not strictly Kanban or any other framework, but it is kind of really helpful to understand where something sits and kind of what the next steps might be. So yeah, that I guess was quite a lot of detail about how we do things at IG. So I thought for the final bit, if you still want to listen to me for a bit, I wanted to talk a little bit about culture, because culture is really integral to innovation. And in fact, I think culture will help the organization go further than any tools and processes could ever take it. It's a living thing, and it's a result of a lot of kind of different factors, that are constantly in motion, and they all kind of need to be able to change constantly, so that the culture kind of stays alive. So there's the purpose and the mission, which is not to be confused with the strategy. So at IG, our purpose is to empower informed, decisive, and venturous people to access opportunities in the financial markets. And our vision is to provide the world's best trading experience. So the purpose kind of keeps us focused on why we exist, and the vision aligns us with the goal. And then there are values, which are collective and individual. So again, if we take IG as an example, so our collective values are champion the client, lead the way, and love what we do. And I'm just going to gush for a second, because I've always seen at IG that for us, these values, they're really, really baked into everything that we do. And they need to be, because, when they aren't, there isn't really a point in having values. I guess we remember Google, don't be evil, didn't really work out that well. So obviously corporate values and individual values aren't the same, but corporate values do their best work when they kind of slot in with individual values. And when they're different, like, one will sort of naturally give way to the other. So if we take our value kind of champion the client as an example, and let's face it, I guess that's not always a rule in our industry. But yeah, for us, it's even baked into our business model. And for me personally, I really couldn't work for a company that didn't care about doing right by the clients. That's not where I do my best work. But on the flip side, I've also seen it go the other way a few times. So over the years, like, I've seen people at IG who didn't share that value or didn't prioritize it, and I think they normally didn't stay with us for a very long time. So the next thing we've got on the list is kind of formal processes. That's, what have you, it's how you pitch projects, it's how you ask for resource, it's how you onboard new people. And then also the less enjoyable stuff, kind of how you manage organizational change and what happens when someone is underperforming. And then you've got the formal processes, you've got the informal ways of working. That's kind of your development team's interpretation of the Scrum framework, or how you handle coaching and mentoring, learning and development, those kind of things. And all of that is culture, and all of that kind of plays a massive part in driving innovation performance. So this is a great chart. And I've stolen that, I didn't make that, but I took it from VIMA, which is innovation software. But it's a really good meta-analysis, kind of all the available studies on the subject of innovation management, like what are the factors hindering innovation in an organization. And they all kind of are pretty self-explanatory, but if you look at the top ones, so not engaging customers and employees, it's kind of another no-brainer. Like, you want the widest possible field to harvest ideas from. Like, your senior management might have fantastic ideas, but you definitely don't want to ignore the people that use your products or the ones that build them. Lack of cultural support and lack of top leadership support, those two are kind of a little bit of a vicious cycle. So if senior leaders aren't behind the organization's innovation, the people of the organization then won't bother engaging with it. And without engagement, there are no results. And then why should leadership team want to support something that doesn't deliver results? Same kind of with poor strategy and product selection, also kind of goes hand in hand. So the innovation strategy, as in kind of the decision which problems and initiatives you want to focus on, that really needs to be aligned with the business strategy ops. But it will kind of give you a guiding light for sort of selecting the projects that have the greatest chance of success. And then lack of skills and talent, that's the same as lack of support from the top, because if lack of resources holding back your innovation efforts, then that can be fixed by either hiring more people or allowing the existing people more time to work on innovation. And for that to happen, you need support from the top. And again, so the point I'm making is culture really is shaped from both directions. So you need the top layer of the organization to define the purpose and the values and the business strategy, and then you need to establish innovation practices from the bottom, so that the people kind of at all levels of the organization will always look to find ways to solve problems and tackle new opportunities and question the way things are done. And if those two really work in tandem, then you have a really, really very scalable way to drive innovation across your entire organization. And now that we've heard kind of a lot about what's stopping organizations from being innovative, but I guess we also want to know kind of what the behaviors are that we should encourage. So what makes a culture kind of pro-innovation? So an innovative organizational culture is a culture where organizational improvement, continuous improvement is kind of second nature, and everyone constantly thinks of ways to get better. It's a culture that values speed and learning and experiments. It considers failure as just a normal part of the process, and it's a culture that provides enough freedom and autonomy to people, and it's led with vision rather than a chain of command approach. Sorry, I'm bad at reading out, but that sounds great. But building this kind of culture, these really easy to like behaviors, that's really only kind of one side of the coin, because they also have to be, there has to be a balance with some kind of tougher and less fun behaviors. So the easy stuff, a tolerance for failure can only work if you also kind of cultivate an intolerance for incompetence, because experiments can fail, and obviously they do all the time, but the reason you experiment is because you want to quantify or qualify unknowns. And it's obviously the nature of the beast that when these unknowns become knowns, sometimes the knowns aren't what you were expecting or hoping for. So what that shouldn't mean is that experiments fail because you asked the wrong questions, or you fail to define the success criteria properly. So if you have a willingness to experiment on the one hand, you need really rigorous testing discipline on the other. And the same kind of with psychological safety. It's really lovely, and obviously everybody should feel safe to express opinions and ask questions, but at the same time, you have to be comfortable with brutal candidness. So sometimes, sometimes the answer to a question is, I don't think you fully understood the concept. And false harmony really is the death of innovation too. And collaboration can only really work when every individual is accountable for their own contribution. I was going to make a joke in German at this point. I don't know if I still want to make it, but there is actually a joke in German that team stands for toll ein anderer macht's, which means, for those of you that aren't fluent, great, someone else will do it. And that's really not what you want. So unless the tension that are created kind of by this paradoxical structure are managed really carefully, sort of any attempts at creating that culture are just bound to fail. So yeah, I think we've covered quite a lot of ground today. But the points that I really want to leave you with, obviously innovation is essential to the survival of any organization in the 21st century. It really is innovate or die. And the approach to how innovation is managed will be obviously unique to every organization, but then the most innovative organizations have things in common and that we can learn from. So kind of summarizing, they have a clear vision and a strategy, but one that everybody understands. They have talented people from diverse backgrounds, and I haven't actually talked about this that much because I've kind of assumed that this audience will be on board with the concept. But I guess it's worth repeating anyway, because diversity of background brings diversity of thought. And diversity of thought, means new questions get asked and new answers get provided. And it's not a box ticking exercise. It's not just the right thing to do, even though it is obviously the right thing to do. And it doesn't even just make good business sense, even though it does make good business sense. But in the 21st century, diversity is absolutely crucial to survival. And again, like personally, I find it really, really encouraging and heartening to see that so many organizations are really starting to recognize that more. And then innovative organizations empower their people, but they hold them accountable for their work and for their decisions. And they have the tools and the structures for making sure that things happen and the right things move forward. And then when something doesn't move forward, they make the reasons for that decision clear. And yeah, to maybe end on another no-brainer, the most innovative companies, they focus on implementing ideas instead of just talking about them. So yeah, that's me done. Thanks for listening. Do we have any questions?
That was great, Milena. Very informative, and it is. This topic is something which we don't focus on, and we think it is, people who are, over intellectual to focus on, and we will focus on something on business continuity and a product which has been developed. Most of the thoughts are focused on the operations mode, but yesterday's idea was today's solution. Somebody created this remote working system, and we're all consuming that. And thanks for those people who have spent a lot of time in taking their ideas and converting into that products. And also when Simon said, I never linked diversity and innovation, and it was a very, very, very thoughtful process, to bringing us all how diversity and the innovations comes together. And as you highlighted, Milena, it's all about the background and the different thoughts, the culture, and and playing the strengths brings in a lot of innovative ideas into product delivery. So it was very, very thoughtful, and I'm sure everyone would agree with me as well. And thank you very much, Simon, to bringing us that 33 years of experience, and how diversified experience you have working with different country and different cultures and everything. And that is something which everyone have to go back and think, how many people, how many different diversity people which we have met, and what are the different learnings we have got, and what have changed or impacted us altogether. So, and coming back, looking into the time, we are happy to take on the question. So you can unmute yourself and start asking questions to Milena related to innovations and what are the challenges or like progress which they make in IG group. If you don't want to ask any questions, you can always type in the chat window as well. I have a question, Nalina. Like what are the challenges which you face when you're working on innovation? Because the priority is always, like business continuity and focus on, like off-the-shelf product which is available. So when there is that aspect, what is the challenge which you face?
The challenge I face at the moment, Simon hinted, is actually resource. Because I mentioned that in the presentation that we have 1 day a month for in the organization for everybody in technology who to spend on non-project work, and innovation falls under that. And on paper that's 700 days a month, but in reality a day a month per person isn't all that much, because there's other innovation work that's there's people working on stuff in their own backlogs that might be innovative. So even though kind of I have that vast resource at my hand, making use of that isn't always that possible. Yeah, so and having that resource and then getting something out at the end of the funnel, that is tricky. We've got a lot of stuff kind of stuck in the middle at the moment because everybody has 2 hours here and there where they kind of bash out a few lines of code. But then, because I kind of product own all of it, I have to drive it along, and I have to kind of rally the troops and get them together. And there's only one of me, and 5 different projects. That's something I struggle with at the moment. But I guess that's kind of teething problems.
Okay.
Can I add from my perspective?
Sure.
So I think of the experience I've had, especially in the last 2 or 3 organisations I've been in before IG, is there's this I suppose it's a schizophrenia between, do you want to make innovation part of the fabric of everyone's role, everyone's job, make it very egalitarian and federated, and you democratise it, so you give it to everyone, and as Milena's saying, we give people time theoretically to work on innovation, but that does get bumped and it's difficult to organise. But in IG, we do have this concept that anyone can come up with a good idea, anyone can pitch an idea to the executive, and we'll listen, and there's always an open door to that. Or do you end up, you focus on a bunch of specialists and you make them the innovation people, and you ring fence that, and you make sure you've got enough money and resource for innovation. But do you get a better result because you potentially create a them and us, where is it the them or the us? I don't know which side of the fence you're on, but if you're in that innovation team, you're coming up with loads of brilliant ideas, but you might not have the ability to execute. And I think Milena really stressed that. It's actually the ability to take the great idea, or maybe even the half-formed idea, and go ahead and do it, that I think makes a difference. And the examples I gave, a couple of the examples I gave, not all of them, we just took a half-baked idea and we tried something out. And it's being brave enough to do that, and forcing enough time in your diary, beg, borrow, and steal from other people to get the job done, that then creates that kind of momentum and traction that you need. So I find, organisations approach it differently. In the last organisation I was in, it was very much the latter of, you had an innovation team, you had an innovation function. And I do remember that I decided not to go to the innovation steering committee when it had 35 members, because bureaucracy descended on it, because it was, everyone wanted to be part of the picture. So it's a really tricky thing. It's very, very tricky to keep it sort of alive and vibrant in any organisation. And part of that is the culture of that organisation, what suits it best. So
yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think also what you want to avoid that situation where kind of innovation is the thing that the cool kids do, and you know, their glass corner, and nobody else is allowed to peer in. Like, you really want to embed that in the organization, but you kind of, yeah, you have to find the middle ground, I guess.
Yeah, the Alexa example I gave, there was two grads that we hired in as part of our graduate intake in Bangalore, and you know, so it came from, you know, a part of the organisation where people just came in and they didn't have any baggage, they didn't have any, you know, sort of view of what can't be done. They just got on with it and did it, and it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It didn't lead to an end product, but that's not the important thing. You know, if you go out into the real world, yeah, 8 out of 10 companies, startups, don't survive for a couple of years. Yeah, that's the chance of you. So the chance of your innovation actually making it into production, into live and in the hands of clients is very slim. But that's not the point. The point is going through the process and learning from it and coming up with another idea because it spawned something else. That's the important thing, not the, you know, runs on the board in terms of things that went live.
And so much of it is culture and engagement.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, like as you like highlighted, it's not about, you know, like every idea will end up on a, you know, like as a product altogether, but it is a journey which we all learn, and you know, like how it is going to help us in implementing that learnings into different aspects of our day-to-day activity is something which is going to help altogether. And you know, like you highlighted, you know, like what there are a lot of aspects which looks into it, like, you know, like flexibility, sustainability is something other important aspects as well. I think we have learned a lot, Milena. Thank you very much, you know, like spending and bringing all those informations together, and also, you know, like highlighting what different people think about innovations as well. And Simon's was a long one and very interesting one.
Yeah, this was fun. I enjoyed putting it together. Didn't enjoy so much giving it because I'm a very nervous public speaker.
You didn't sound so.
You're great.
Yeah. We are open to have take on questions if you have Yana, Deepa, Sami, Rashmi, Gillen. Thank you very much for staying with us for long in the evening.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's 8:15.
Yeah, if you have any questions, you can always unmute and have a conversation with Milena and Simon.
Or you can also always find me on Twitter if you want.
This is where you know, like the innovation comes in, right? Like you should innovate now yourself. You know, like start asking any silly questions. Nothing is a silly question. Just go out and ask. I think Yana have unmuted herself.
I was about to say it was great. It's really, really interesting. I mean, in our company, we are innovate, like there's this innovation phase we're going through. So from digital, we're moving to a technology company. So we have this strategy 2025, but I would say it's still unclear to us. I mean, it's really communicated, like, I know it's COVID times now, but before it was communicated, like we had boards and everything, signs that we're moving, you know, towards a technology company. But for example, I don't think it referred like as a team. We didn't think it was referring to our team. Maybe it was referring to the overall company. So it was they were, you know, enhancing the spirit of collaboration between different teams, between countries and different teams. But it was very generic. So there wasn't like a clear structure. So we had the meeting with the CTO where he communicated the new strategy, but it was still unclear to us. You mean to the rest of the company, and that there was, of course, meetings with our directors and the heads of for different departments. But still, I feel like it's very, and everything, of course, it was the moving from a digital company to a technology company was all down to innovation, right? So I still find it's very vague. Of course, it's the culture. You explained it like perfectly. So it's still like theory to me, if it makes sense. So we may still, like, I think we may be doing it, like we may be doing innovative things, but I don't know, it's just the way people communicate it, maybe. I don't know.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because that's one thing I think that every organization struggles with, is how to make the people on the ground relate to the business strategy. And actually in IG again, so this year or last year, for the first time ever, we had a really thorough approach to that. But before that, it never really happened. I don't know, Simon, you weren't with us before, were you? So, but this time, we had a really kind of top-down approach, a cascade approach, where the business strategy got presented and the goals got presented, and then at every layer of the organization, we had a workshop to go through the business strategy and to work out kind of in tandem with a member of our senior leadership team to work out what that meant for our teams. And I was part of some of those workshops, and I also led some of those workshops. And I have to say that was the following year, we were incredibly aligned with what the organization wanted to achieve. But that was a deliberate choice, and I think that Simon, you will have seen that from the other side. That there was a lot of work that went into that.
Yeah, there was, and I joined just before that happened, so I did get a glimpse of the old style. I think that getting the combination between having a strategic roadmap and a very, very clear North Star, but also, I suppose, North Star is used for navigation. You don't always go straight from A to B. You don't always go in a straight line. And the organisation has to be able to adapt and move, and especially in our industry, it is very dynamic, and new products, new ideas, new competitors, new threats, new opportunities come up all the time. So it's how do you get that blend between having a really clear strategic intent, plus at the same time you still need to be, I don't like the word tactical, but it's not tactical, it's opportunistic, and again, innovative, to say I'm going to go and do something else. Some of our products, for example, we deal in a highly regulated environment, and regulators sort of some of them are easier and more difficult to deal with. Some of them have different views on the products that we offer to our clients. So products that we think of that we may be thinking of applying them to one market, we find that actually when we come to the point of execution or delivery, may not be suitable for that market, because the regulators change their perspective or their view on that, on what's acceptable or not. And then we move it to another market, and we find that it meets the regulatory demands, and also our clients really like it. So there's examples where you still have to be quite, you need to be able to pivot very quickly, but you still got that strategic intent to, as Milena said, to diversify our business, to make sure we champion our clients and make sure we deliver what they really want, whilst we're still fleet of foot. It's not easy. It brings with it that ambiguity that I think Jana was talking about, in terms of, it's not always clear what it means, and what work will be done to get to an outcome. And sometimes you have to look backwards and say, after a few years, and go, okay, yeah, we did move forward. We did actually move towards that strategic intent. We may not have got to where we thought we were going to get to, but it does represent what we intended to do.
Yeah, so exactly. So I was also thinking, like, innovation. So we had in our team, we migrated from a vendor, like a tool that the vendor provided. So we migrated to like an in-house tool, and we had to build it up. We built new functionalities, etc. So that's one step. That's okay. That's, you bring innovation and you're building up the product in-house, and then you enhance it. But then, like, innovation is also giving the markets the way to talk and enhance the product, create a community. That's also innovation, right? Create a community where local markets can talk and has like a group product. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. I think I touched upon that briefly, but you really want to be like a sponge. You want to get your ideas from everywhere you can get them from. You want to get them from the top of the organization, from the medium and the bottom of the organization. You want to go to your customers, and for us, we even want to go to the regulators. They give us ideas. So you really have to be like a sponge and just absorb everything. And half of it might never, or 90% of it might never come to anything, but at least you've had the idea and you've considered it.
Yeah, no, yeah, makes sense. Cool. Yeah. Cool, thank you.
I think that was a really great presentation. Just following on.
Sorry, you've gone really mute.
I think Deepa's talking.
Oh my
Hello?
goodness. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. So yeah, when Yana was talking about, like the ideas can come from anywhere, even from the local groups. So that triggered me to ask this question. Uh, the thing is, like in IG group you have this forum, like you have a door which can, like easily are open for people to come and talk about their ideas or raise their ideas altogether. But for example, if in the tech world, wherever the techies work, the developers work, they have, like if they don't have that platform, what is the recommendations or advice you would be giving for them to approach?
sorry, can you say that again?
So there are only few organizations where they have this forum where they can come and share their ideas, right? Like IG Group has it. But if they don't have it in their organizations, what is the advice or the recommendation you will give for a developer?
That's a good
How to
question. I
approach?
think,
How to
yeah,
approach?
because I think this is where I really said, like, it has to come from both sides, right? So there has to be the support from top management. There has to be a way for people to talk and raise ideas. Like, what if maybe it's just a pitch? So you will have the formal processes to raise ideas or pitch projects. So I guess you can pitch an initiative and pitch for budget and pitch for resource. But I think if there isn't that support from the top, that I guess that's tricky. I don't know, Simon. Do you have anything to add to that?
I'm going to echo what you said. I mean, I think I can't talk about other organisations, but I think IG, one of the things I've emphasised is that anyone can pitch for a project. So from a business perspective, innovation is encouraged and embraced. I think what we do in tech in particular is around our IT vision, which is so we have a business strategy at IG. What I don't like is having an IT strategy that is separate from the business strategy. So we don't, the IT strategy is the business strategy, but we also have an IT vision that says, what do we want IT to be like in the future? That irrespective of how that business strategy might change. And, as I said, we're a dynamic business, we pivot quite often. And it's that IT vision, that the forum that we have within that gives tech people the opportunity to suggest new ideas. I think one of the innovation stats is that I think it's something like 50% of all innovation comes from technologists in an organization. Yeah, they're the people who drive innovation. And it's not because they're smarter than anyone else, it's because they've got access to so many tools and modern techniques and, again, a very fast-moving type of discipline. Doesn't matter what industry you're in, what business you're in, it's that discipline of technology that's driving so much future thought that gives us an unfair advantage as technologists to come up with these new ideas. So we actively encourage that as part of our IT vision. Is what do you want in terms of the ways of working, the technologies, the people skills, the kind of client experience that we want to offer that stimulates those new kinds of things. So it's having forums like that is a really important thing. And again, with the vision, it's a bit like innovation itself. What I said was there is no outcome deliverable with certainty. It's just keep talking, keep coming up with good ideas, keep working on it, have communities of practice, share a common viewpoint, and things will come out of it. You have to have faith in that.
Perfect.
Excuse me, sorry, I'm just coughing.
Like I think I just picked something to end my notes, Simon, from you. It's like like you said, we have the forums and the tools which favors the technology people. I think we should exploit and use the opportunity to like start innovating more, because we have that. Like more reachable as well. I think everyone should explore, and like any ideas it can be, like as I said, like yesterday's idea was like today's solution, which we are all using. So that's that's great. It was very, very useful, Milena. Thank you very much, and Simon, thank you very much, and like coming and answering all our questions and staying the whole session. I didn't expect you will be doing that. I really appreciate that. And Diana, Deepa, Vail, Sami, Ava, and Tanuja, thank you very much. And we will be sharing this recordings very soon, so that like the whole community can make use of the session, even though if they're not available online. So using the technology, like they can come and on demand, it's all available, so they can come and enrich their knowledge anytime, because we have set it and it's all recorded. So Milena, you have anything to say?
No, just thank you very much for having me. This was really exciting. I can go breathe now and have a glass of chamomile tea, I think.
You did a good job, and all the best for your next week's presentation as well.
Thanks very much, and thank you, Simon.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
both.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.